Hello. Awesome. Is the fucking internet broken now? Supposed to start at 3, but the internet is not working now. Okay. Almost ready. Good. The Razer mouse customization suite is still functional. Internet's down when I did an email blast to thousands of people that I'm going to be on webcam, but the Razer mouse is functional. This is good. There we go. Okay. Just gotta email someone telling them they're a fag. Now we're back in it. We're back in the mix here. Should I go live? Yes. Do the old unplug and plug the webcam back in trick here. Just fucking retarded. Why is the web fucking... Oh my god. So we got the webcam working on webcamtoy.com, but it's not, YouTube does not want to access this webcam. We're doing going live. We're clicking go live. We're excited right now. And this is attempt number 5 here. We're going public on this one. And we do not have the webcam just yet. Something went wrong. Try again. So something went wrong this time. Okay. This is actually working out. This is actually the way I was. I did plan for this. This is a contingency that I'm prepared for. so don't worry. I'm going to sign in now. And we're going to get the password. Perfect. Okay, now we're going to get our, no big deal, we're just going to get our hardware YubiKey. The security key doesn't look familiar. Sign in. So we're going to get our hardware YubiKey. So give me half an hour, I'll be right back. Let's see if we can find this. Thankfully, this is something I prepared well in advance for here, guys. So I'm not sweating this at all, really. And we're going to touch the security key, and we've bypassed the two-step verification. We've successfully triggered that scenario. And we're going to not ask again on this computer, although that option doesn't seem to work. It seems like whenever I click don't ask again on this computer, it just ignores that. So now let's see if Chrome can recognize the webcam. Which is very interesting. So oh my God. That was fucking insane. What a piece of shit YouTube is. Christmas? Jayu's Trip to the Future. This book is not an official Disney Star Wars franchise tale. Oh, wait, let me just send a quick reminder. Let me just send one more. Nope, I'm gonna skip that. Okay. Here we go. I'm gonna do a selected reading here. 2 chapters from the book. Chapter 1. School's no fun! We find ourselves... This is already a problem. We find ourselves at the New York University, Yale, Harvard, Baby College. Footnote, proud to be a McDonald's Brainiac Playpen Play Place. Shaping the future for play, for every race. An institution for high-achieving smarties, specials, and math rock brainiacs. These are the people who will undoubtedly shape the world of tomorrow. The anointed few who, once they finally outgrow their designated cuddle and kiss fellatio gynoid turbo spaces, are going to define the next generation of success. This is success and prestige. This is lush. Okay? It's a bit like wearing a gold Rolex around your brain. And if you can afford the $200,000 per year tuition, adjusted for inflation and cryptocurrency adoption, it is highly recommended. The major degrees on campus are Labi and PhysX, sponsored by NVIDIA, Let's Play, Earth Pseudoscience, and Sex Worker Tort Law. Footnote, if this doesn't pique your interest, NYU Yale HBC also boasts respectful dumpster archaeology, careful not to desecrate any hobo burial grounds, coital android engineering and field testing, feline zoology for asteroid spinsters, quantum furry dentistry, tantric machine learning astronomy, and gay sex for homosexual faggots, advanced poop procreation. However, NYU Yale HBC prides itself on offering less practical and more esoteric studies as well, okay? This is a realm of the mind, not just getting your degree, such as masturbation, anti-knowledge, and stream of consciousness poetry. Not many schools these days will allow you to get a doctorate in jerking it, but here you can do just that. The Honor specials tend to convene in the Zoe Quinn Dedication Library with Ritalin 4 drips and LSD amphetamine blotters on every book page, using Microsoft Bing to find exactly what they need to find when they need to find it. When it's time to relax, they love just hanging out in the air vents or the cafeteria's walk-in freezer in the fetal position, thinking Honor special thoughts. One second, people are emailing me about the YouTube thing being done. I got a fucking new post. Everyone, send email. Send an email to everyone. Boink. Okay. Sometimes these students slack off and party a bit too hard. There is certainly no shortage of cocaine and Molly-fueled omnisexual orgies accompanied by pulsing modest Yahoo music on campus, that's for sure. But for the most part, people keep their nose to the grindstone, snorting THC pills to stay focused, writing comments on RedTube and LobsterTube videos behind multi-layered Tor VPNs, a common skill-building assignment. In the main courtyard, a group of skippies plays yiffy ball. Their sleek, tall, powerful green bodies easily slide in, out, and between each other in a primal dance of pure athleticism. Their bip-bop music is loud and distracting to the other students trying to concentrate, but tolerating the annoying and loud skippies is a sign of virtue and, more importantly, sophistication. The Skippy bip-bop music is the most advanced and important music ever created throughout all of history. They hooted and hollered as the yiffy ball bounced around the court. Sure, it was true that their tremendous brains could comprehend math and physics problems beyond the reach of almost all other humans. But this didn't mean that they were corny like a bunch of boring crack-a-honkies, and they delighted in the simple pleasure of the bouncing ball. Skippy students all knew how to have a good time when they weren't solving the world's most advanced problems with hypermath, and partied up as well, always in a safe and respectful way. I should also mention that they are better lovers. While walking through the dorm halls, one would hear Skippy men respectfully shouting, "Consent!" And in response, higher-pitched voices of all races, in the throes of sexual ecstasy, crying, "Granted!" What a fucking asshole. I got an email from some kid who's trying to role play as a computer. He's pretending he's an artificial intelligence. Okay. In addition to the vibrant and hip skippies, the courtyard was always abuzz with trend-setting subcultures and inventive extracurricular distractions, resplendent against the backdrop of stately and significant architecture. Massive gilded statues shaped like pizza spirals, generously donated by Yale alums John Kerry and George W. Bush, framed the austere exterior of the Skull and Bones fraternity house, where the future leaders of tomorrow can be found inside sharing handjobs and gay blackmail touches. Blackmail as in blackmail, not blackmail. There weren't, well, we'll get into that later. Footnote, while still active in 2070 and serving customers to the same high standard of quality enjoyed for over 200 years, the Skull and Bones Society is now a wholly owned subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company. Other great Walt Disney brands to keep an eye out for: the Branch Davidians, Antifa, Philip Morris Blood Diamond Corporation, and Ping Pong Pizza, Not a Child Porn Company, Incorporated. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more great Skull and Bones conspiracies. Not far from the S&B hut, careful not to tread too far into the occult order's turf, the HFT kids and the TensorFlow kids take a break from their strenuous pen and paper calculations and let off some steam with a spirited game of butt plug volleyball. Footnote, take a guess. Even the gender psionic majors were out in the sun, enjoying the splendiferousness and practicing new methods of anti-racist Tai Chi by the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg Bill Gates Vaccine Dedication Memorial 5G Gazebo. Footnote, interact! By the way, this book is interactive. So when I prompt you to interact, that's your cue to interact. Interactions are requisite, and they actually change the storyline. When you interact based on what I prompt you with, it changes the storyline. There's up to 20 different endings that you can. There's up to 50 different endings that you can achieve in this book. Interact! Look up who Julius and Ethel Rosenberg are, and then wonder, why are Hollywood types obsessed with eulogizing and posthumously exonerating two traitors who fed the Soviets information on the atomic bomb and arguably emboldened them to occupy North Korea, leading to a war which took the lives of 3 to 4 million people? And why is it that certain millions of lives matter, certain other millions of lives don't matter? Shouldn't all millions of lives matter? And over on the Far East Side, where the college filters out onto the Harry Potter King Jr. Street with its dozens of exciting Adderall bars and axe-throwing stalls, under the imposing, triumphal Mike Brown arch stood a cute and obviously charismatic couple. Perhaps a bit like you and your sweet gal. Perhaps the stars of our story? The girl, Kylese Slane, was a plump, plain-looking hate-white special. Plain-looking hate-white, that's her race, is hate-white. Special, she's a special. With beautiful cellulite-stippled walrus thighs, gorgeous bruised knock knees, plentiful cutter scars, and perfect uneven watery breasts. She stood about 5 feet 10 inches tall in chunky Gothic heels that made all the boys stand at attention. Her face, which was caked in sticky foundation and exotic sexy cat effect eye paint, oscillated between primarily a twisted palsy sneer of entitlement, which she thought made her look like a genius, and an expression of mouth and eyes agog stupefaction that she would uncontrollably lapse into whenever she thought about celebrities. Her hair had seen some abuse, and between the bleachings, straightenings, dreadings, and undreadings, the end result looked like a heap of char-grilled spaghetti on her head. It wasn't a big deal, though. Kylese found that if she used lipstick to paint a target around her hindquarters, just so, she could fool most men's optical scanners into thinking her SMV was as high, if not higher, than it was before she put her hair through the Spanish Inquisition. Now, this hyper-focus on appearance was a bit hypocritical of Kylese, because she spent nearly as much time and energy railing against mass-market beauty standards and espousing a set of morally better ones, which more often than not simply authorized her to be extra nasty and vindictive in her dealings with prettier/younger girls. The onus for the collateral damage caused by this behavior, suicides, eating disorders, hospitalizations, crying fits, etc., falls solely upon heterosexual hate white men, as it should. Kylese claimed to be gender blank and pan-lesbianic with a splash of queerch, although for some weird unknown reason she most frequently dated masculine cis men. Sure, it was a grand old time having a consensual romp or two with the Skippy Yiffy Ball team, but was it really fair to them to expect anything more serious? Could she ever really understand their story, their struggle? As happy as it made her to know that her father was going into debt so she could get railed, she knew that being a good person, not a perpetrator of systemic racism and cultural appropriation, meant using the Skippies like sex toys and nothing more. Whatever the rationale, at the end of the day, her heart always came back for the bologna. In Jaihu's case, the spicy chorizo bologna stir-fry. We'll get to that in a second. Like many hate white girls with Asian boyfriends, she also had a touch of borderline personality disorder. And by a touch, I mean enough to power a casino if they had hydroelectric turbines for mental illness. Lastly, she was infinitesimally Cherokee, which she also had a degree in. The boy was Jaihu Cornunian. At 5'6", he was an impressive specimen for a Sporinx, footnote, Mexican identifying of Korean descent. I know a lot of people say stuff like this, but he had an aura about him, strangely aloof and apathetic. I mean, you could tell he just didn't give a fuck. He wasn't concerned with dressing in a manly way. In fact, most of his clothes were flowing black gothic ninja garments designed to enhance his androgyny. Underneath his neoprene Nike cloak, he wore a Huff V-neck which displayed the latest hot album covers on a paper-thin, flexible LED panel and occasionally bleated chiptune riffs in rhythm with his walking. Khaleesi was watching the elegant forms of the skippy yiffy ballers at play. She was stimulated by their tribal moves and unrestrained physical aggression. She felt a growing wetness through her antimicrobial summer's eve bug spray tights. In truth, she couldn't get stimulation from Jaihu, even though he was an activist who cared about lesser classes and complained very loudly and at the right times. He was perfectly femme-zoned, just the way Khaleesi claimed to want it. Yet she still needed that special something, and she had to get it from other men. Even though Jaihu sometimes felt bad because of it, the two were both happy on the whole, and it really was the perfect arrangement. Jaihu was able to get laid once a week by his best friend, and soulmate, using their Boston Dynamics org-enhanced G, of course. And he knew that when Khaleesi was ready for children, or at least money, at her own pace, on her own time, she would come to him and no one else. And he would be there for her. He would be there for her. It was a true storybook romance. Time for the first class of the day. Jaihu kneeled down and kissed her goodbye on the bottom, and she gave him a tender, loving kick in the chastity cage. As he hoverboarded to Imaginary Studies 101, he looked up at the neon vomit-colored sky and thought, what pulses through our veins at the speed of love? Interact! Riddle edition! What pulses through our veins at the speed of love? Take 30 seconds to think of the answer. Dun 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 dun. Acceptable answers are socialism, grids, anti-Semitism. If you failed to guess an acceptable answer, interact right now by setting fire to this book. Footnote, don't worry, it's printed on magician's paper, aka nitrocellulose, such that it vanishes completely after being burnt. It won't leave a trace. New York University, Yale, Harvard, Baby College official motto, cum liberis fornicare non deprivatio sed consuetudo. Translation, plowing ahead with youth in hand. Was one of the world's finest schools. And no surprise, Jaihu was one of the finest male students. His thirst for knowledge and lust for learning were unparalleled for a man. Of course, even a below-average woman would outpace him intellectually, but that was no fault of his. Imaginary Studies with Professor Levi Goldstein was easily his favorite subject. Goldstein was at the top of Z's field, and every class was an absolute pleasure. Jaihu would sit in the front row and imagine learning, closing his eyes to just think of all the things there were to study. Well, Goldstein stood at the podium and spewed nonsense in some sort of bastardized binaural Yiddish-Jamaican hybrid, a language proven to dramatically intensify one's belief that learning is taking place. Of course, Professor Goldstein, being a great practical joker, would also occasionally hum Gregorian chants and quote stock prices, while fondling himself raw through Z's khakis to test if anyone was paying attention. It was all in good-natured fun, For in imaginary studies, every student gets an A+. This class would surely preparate Jaihu for real life, he was told, and make him an eligible candidate for one of the 500 or so job openings that were available in the world. He had in mind one job in particular, an unpaid rat feces eater apprenticeship at Greenco Fuelwell Incorporated, that he imagined would eventually blossom into a $1 million Dow token per year vice president job, where his job would be to get other people jobs and create more job openings based on governmental job reports. That is, if greedy Wall Street megacorps and science deniers would just get out of the way and let the jobifiers jobify. Being a job was his life's calling, or should I say, his life was his job's calling. And every minute spent in imaginary studies brought him closer to that dream. To be of use to a corporation, to increase their profits, cut expenses, and come up with great ad campaigns. It meant the world to Jaihu. Of course, between now and then, he'd have to prove himself as an apprentice and work his way up by rolling rat droppings into bigger ping-pong ball-sized orbs and gulping them down whole. But once Greenco Fuelwell saw what a diligent and true employee Jaihu could be, they'd be sure to set him on the fast track to success. And he really liked Greenco Fuelwell in particular, because they had a reputation for giving their employees their penises and testicles back as soon as they reached middle management, as opposed to many other companies that hang on to the important stuff until the executive level. Jaihu's eyes were swimming with sweet visions of being a helpful lackey. Lackey! Heck, he'd let the CEO take a shit on his chest if it would make the company $1 extra in pre-tax profits. Boopy bop boop beep beep. A few taps on the Apple Watch, and the Foxconn Lucid Dreamer 69K was remotely programmed to beam good corporate vibes into his head that night. It was a setting he often chose, for when the disembodied, big-nosed, purple-lipped face of his good pal and mentor, Professor Levi Goldstein, who was also a licensed Foxconn Lucid Dream avatar, sang gently in his ear, his sleep would become a free-floating bliss blast to a candy cloud. Ignore this. This is not happening. Stay in school and drink your milk. Don't do these. Don't do one of these. Ah! Oh! Oh! Oh, it's gonna ruin my night. Smell. Okay. Right. It couldn't all be fun and games. Today's next class, French fry mechanics, was a bit less exciting to say the least. This class gave Jaihu a really hard time, but it was important for his future, and so he dedicated a great deal of brainpower to thinking about how to make the perfect batch of crispy golden fries. The professor, Stephen Lebowitz, was a real stickler, and if one of Jaihu's fries was a dud, he'd have to restart the whole batch. There were maybe 2,000 students in the French Fry Mechanics Amphitheater, all situated around the central holographic projection of Professor Lebowitz. Each student had their own personal mini fryer, which was functionally identical to the real fryers they would be using throughout their careers. And likewise, each student was connected to their own personal facial recognition camera and genital electrode apparatus, which helped to ensure that all of the fries, hot fries, and griddle fresh beef patties were served up with a gleaming smile and a good attitude. This was the one class Jaihu couldn't seem to get the hang of. and he was in the bottom 25%. He had the scrotal burns to prove it, and in fact, it was so stressful, he developed severe trichotillomania and TMJ, and became deeply sad and dejected, and very desperately needed help. But none of that mattered. He was going to have to practice a lot if he had any hope of getting an internship followed by a 10-year-long unpaid apprenticeship after college and his master's program was over. Interact! Think about crispy golden fries. First, the aroma, which entices you and lets you know amazing flavors are headed your way. Next, the heat and texture of the golden crispy fry between your fingertips, the direct connection to a spark of newborn fry life. Just a little greasy so you know it's good. Now open your mouth and accept the salt, dude. Slowly at first, the burst of taste exploding in your mouth, gushing one fry at a time. Now more and more until you're double-fisting big fried chunkalunks. Scarf it down! This message is sponsored by McDonald's. My taste is yours. The bell rang, and a microwave pulse of reminder pain shot out from the school's underground scheduling cortex. Jaihu quickened his step along to the next class, Retail 101, which was even less exciting than French fry mechanics. But at least Jaihu was a competent retail technician, which meant he could relax a little. It was a large class with approximately 4,000 students, all corralled together in the big oxygen deprivation tents, which were made up on the inside to resemble real shopping safe zones. The thinner air helped the students perfect conservation of movement. In an actual retail environment, you see, every fold, flip, stitch, zip, brush of the lint roller, and swipe of the cred stick swiper was crucial. And even something as innocuous as excessive breathing could wind up costing the corporation and the government millions in profits and tax revenue. An added side benefit was that all the students learned firsthand the agony and injustice of the police brutality that is a reality for far too many Nemerakians. Jaihu couldn't breathe. Retail 101 was taught by Dr. Jacob Cohen, PhD, who was legendary not only across campus but throughout the world of commerce for inventing a special neck brace which maximized worker focus. The brace, the rights to which had been bought by Mahindra for God knows how much money and branded the My Worker Bee in Namarak and the My Sandeep in India, was a rather clever gizmo which used whistles, horns, LEDs, champagne confetti poppers, and needles to keep laborers zeroed in on mission-critical tasks such as making tortillas and stocking shelves. Of course, the horse blinders on the side were just for show, a special request from the Indian factory floor bosses, which didn't actually enhance the efficacy of the device. The real trick was making it affordable at scale, which Cohen achieved by using an Arduino LilyPad to coordinate the various sensors, with everything powered by 3 AAA batteries conveniently stored in the wearer's ass. The cherry on the sundae? An ingenious set of mechanical gears positioned on the back of the neck brace, which would cleverly snap the worker's cervical spine like a number 2 pencil, should he or she be so unwise as to fall asleep while on the clock. The Mahindra My Worker Bee proved so effective that it is considered essential equipment in the menial labor industry. Cohen was a genius, and NYU Yale HBC was lucky that this double-digit millionaire investor and retail scientist felt so strongly about educating today's future salespeople and assembly line workers that he'd do it essentially almost for free, or very close to free. Jaihu sighed. He knew his Retail 101 homework was helping out the global economy and also directly subsidizing the university, but the tedium weighed on him. Some days the students would learn how to sew together soccer balls, sewing up 200 balls apiece in a given 4-hour period. Other times they would fold t-shirts and put them in plastic bags. The t-shirts had cool logos and sayings on them. The t-shirts had cool logos and sayings on them. Stuff like peace and Che Guevara in dynamic graffiti lettering. He couldn't afford to buy a shirt like that himself, but he imagined that they probably got shipped out to cool people with good taste. People with interesting and sexy depops. It wasn't exciting work, but Jaihu was willing to practice and study hard to make himself a valuable commodity in the scarce job market that awaited him. 1 second, y'all. Just gotta check my stocks. Let me check my stocks. And I'm broke. And I'm broke. And I've made a foolish decision with my money. And I've made a foolish decision with the only money I'll ever have. All right. Jaihu obediently packed an I care about others distressed V-neck into a Uline BPA pure bag. Footnote, pure BPA. It is pure BPA. And sent it down the conveyor belt. Although Professor Cohen was seemingly distracted, playing Zynga on his phone and mowing down a bagel with nootropic lox schmear, you never knew what the old man could catch out of the corner of his eye. Jaihu knew that if he didn't pack the t-shirts with total loving care, there would be hell to pay. Maybe even a lawsuit. He had already been sued by Cohen 3 times this semester. He reached for the next shirt, but then there was a loud crashing boom bang sound in the hall. The skippy bit-bop music thumping through the walls to a present-day person would seem vulgar and mindless, and would seem like culture-killing anti-music created by dangerous subhuman retards. But in 2.5 years hence, things are so advanced and therefore counterintuitive that even your lowest tier country bumpkin redneck hate white has to admit that bip-bop exists in the same hallowed artistic realm of the finest classical music, and perhaps even a bit higher. It is astounding how much meaning can be conveyed through just 3 monosyllables. It is this ancient and time-honored 3-word structure, invented untold generations ago in the skippy homelands of Atlantis, that gives bip-bop music its form and perhaps some of its primal power. For example, 800 Shibby's hit song, Rape Dat Bitch, is just a chant repeated over and over again for 7 minutes. Rape that bitch! Rape that bitch! Rape that bitch! And so on. Jaihu fondled an unfolded shirt, listening to the hypnotic dirge of raw, healthy, hypermasculine energy. Rape that bitch! Rape that bitch! He thought of Khaleesi and her many lovers, all of them consensual as hell. Knowing he could never please a woman like a powerful and wise Skippy could, even with his Boston Dynamics organ-enhanced G and 50W200 Bose-Einstein condensate KY Nanolube. For a split second, a proto-thought of ancient ethnic hatred was allowed to bubble up from his amygdala. Had this proto-thought been allowed to cascade, he would have seen a vision, a horse-mounted Mongol archer, or rather, a horde of archers, with fine fur hats and dyed silk robes, chasing down strange-looking Atlantean beasts, whose nakedness was only concealed by stinking coiled hair and matted straw skirts. The beasts ran like scared children, their gait disrupted by spasms of primal fear, as bamboo arrows sang through the air and called their numbers. Jaihu's Neuralink contact lens video screen, which was connected to the Calm app on his phone, flashed a red and yellow Ravello reset pattern, and he lost his train of thought before it could start. Shirts. Time to bag and fold these bad boys. End of chapter 1. All right, I'll do one more chapter. Let me see what is fun. This book is so fried because the whole thing is like packed with that shit. So after you get through 1/3 of it, it's just like it becomes very like textural and abstract. It's like psychic driving or something like that. Like the words don't even matter anymore. And dude, when I wrote this, I wrote like, there's like 2 or 3 points. There's like 2 or 3 points where I started down some really, this is written by me and John Pellick and a couple other people, by the way. But there were a bunch of points where I started down some really important path where I was like, yeah, I'll just conclude this later. And then later on, I forgot to tie it off or to make it come back to the main, the A-line plot. So there's parts in the book later on where it's like, you might be wondering what happened with the big race. Turns out Jaihu won it all, like wrapping it up in one sentence. Let me see if I can find that. What would I search for to get to that point? Fuck it. All right. Let's do chapter 3. Chapter 3. Last chance for love. Wait, is that no, that's not the one I want. Ultimate Woman, blah, 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 Legendary Rival, Ernie Flanders. The audiobook turned out good, which I was worried about. Okay. So now this is the part where he's having he's got to win the love and affection of Khaleesi through by being victorious in a drift battle. Chapter 6. Superstars of the Earth. And he's been arrested at this point, and the arresting officer's name is Officer. I'm just thinking. Hold on a second.